I hope everyone made it through Camelot in one piece. Soberoni of G&A Reviews here with a Servant Spotlight for Master Senpai's absolute favorite Kohai, Mosh. We'll be examining her stats and skills, as well as going over pointers on how to utilize her effectively, and an overall grade comparing her to how she stacks up to the other servants. I also have a spotlight out for Lancer Arturia, so do check that out right after this. And I do want to say that this video will contain spoilers if you haven't beaten Camelot, so you have been warned. But for now, on to Mosh's stats. Mosh has a max HP of 12,877, and there are no other Shielder servants to compare her to, but overall that is a very high HP stat for a 4-star, and her max attack of 8,730 on the other hand is very below average for a 4-star servant. Taking a look at her skills, her first skill is Transient Wall of Snowflakes, which increases the party's defense between 10 to 15% for 3 turns, depending on level, and this will be upgraded through Camelot story quest to Illustrious Wall of Snowflakes, which will increase defense for 3 turns for everyone between 15 to 20%, and apply a 2,000 damage cut for 1 time for the whole party. Her second skill is Obscurant Wall of Chalk, which applies invincibility to an ally and increases their Noble Phantasm gauge between 10 to 20% depending on level. And finally, her last skill is Shield of Rousing Resolution, which applies target focus or taunt for 1 turn and increases NP gain on Mosh between 200 to 400% depending on level. Looking at her passives, she has Magic Resistance rank A, which increases debuff resist by 20%, and Riding rank C, which increases quick card effectiveness by 6%. Taking a look at her deck and Noble Phantasm, Mosh has an Arts Buster deck with Quick Arts Buster Buster and an Arts Noble Phantasm. Her Noble Phantasm is Lord Caldeus, which increases the defense of all allies for 3 turns between 30 to 50% depending on overcharge, and applies damage cut for 3 turns between 100 and 1000 depending on level. This Noble Phantasm can be upgraded after completing Camelot, and it will add the effect of increasing the attack of all allies except herself for 3 turns by 30%. Taking a closer look at her cards, we see that her quick card hits twice, her arts hits twice, her buster hits once, and her extra attack hits 3 times. She has an NP gain rate of 0.84% and a star rate of 9.9%. Overall, she has average Noble Phantasm gain and star generating, and for comparison, both her star generating and NP gain are about the same as Arturia's. Finally, a spotlight for the cute Kohai. Mosh is easily one of the most underrated servants in the game, and with her Camelot upgrades, she makes a case for being the tankiest. Her first skill is very strong defensively post-upgrade, and it's very similar to Waver's Tactician's Advice skill, as it provides both a defensive buff for the whole party and a damage cut. The damage cut is only a one-time effect, however 2,000 reduced damage is significant when paired with the 20% defensive buff, and in most cases it'll reduce all damage to 0. The skill's also on a short 5-turn cooldown, making it a reliable defensive buff you can keep active for the majority of the battle. Another key tool for Mosh's tankiness is Obscurant Wall of Chalk. It provides a targetable invincibility, making it very versatile, and the NP charge that it provides also gives it a good piece of utility. Finally, Shield of Resolution synergizes perfectly with her other 2 skills, making her able to draw enemy attacks to herself while her defenses are high or while she's invincible. It also gives a huge boost to NP gain, so Mosh can fill her NP gauge easily despite her lackluster NP gain. In fact, the NP gain from this skill will be your primary means of supercharging your Noble Phantasm gauge, so don't overlook it. I highly recommend maxing out Illustrious Wall of Snowflakes first, because it will be your main defensive skill, followed by Obscurant Wall of Chalk for the lower cooldown, and finally your taunt, as it is slightly more situational. Mosh's Noble Phantasm, Lord Camelot, has the perfect synergy with her defensive skill set, providing the whole team with an additional 30 to 50% defense buff and a substantial damage cut for 3 turns. Post Camelot, it even provides a very strong 30% attack buff to the whole party. And this is what makes Mosh the defensive behemoth that she is. Her Noble Phantasm combined with her first skill will give the party at least a 50% defense buff and a significant damage cut for 3 turns. Essentially, she's reducing all damage done to your team by half, and in many cases, eliminating any damage altogether. And while Mosh is by no means an NP spamming monster like Da Vinci, she can get her Noble Phantasm off multiple times very reliably and even stack the buffs thanks in large part to her NP charge and taunt. So she can provide your team with overwhelming defense on a consistent basis as well as a strong attack buff. The main objective with Mosh is to always have your defensive buffs active, whether from your first skill or your Noble Phantasm or both, to mitigate as much damage done to your team as possible. And you'll also want to use your invincibility and taunt strategically to protect your main damage dealer from damage. No servant provides as much defense to your team as Mosh. And on her own, Mosh also benefits from neutral damage from all enemies, including Berserkers, making her viable against any enemy no matter the situation, which gives her tremendous team utility as well, and very strong solo potential. Of course, as a defense-first servant, Mosh's damage is incredibly low, and her invincibility and taunt have longer cooldowns than normal, but given how good they are, that's to be expected. In the right team, Mosh is game-breaking, specifically when using her as a staller, so when pairing her with Tamamo, Waver, Edison, Hans, Irisfiel, or Jean, your team is unkillable against 99% of the game. Mosh also specializes in protecting high-value glass cannons like Berserkers and more fragile offensive servants like Gil, Saber Lancelot, Saber Alter, Rider Kentoki, and pretty much any offensive servant that lacks a heal, guts, evade, or invincibility. And never underestimate the 30% attack buff that she gives. Because of that, she can provide both the ultimate defense and good offensive support to your damage dealing servants. Really, Mosh is much like Waver and Hans in that she pairs perfectly with every single servant in the game since she has such crazy high defensive utility. In addition, she has zero cost, so there's absolutely never a reason to not have her on your team. Unfortunately, Mosh does not have a Bond Craft Essence, but you'll want to use a Craft Essence on her that prioritizes her NP gain, defense, or utility. I highly recommend maximizing her Noble Phantasm gain above all else so that you can reliably use your Noble Phantasm. In that case, your best options are Prisma Cosmos, Divine Banquet, Little Halloween Devil, or Faithful Companions. If you would rather have her focus more on defense, then you can go with Iron Will Training, Holy Shroud when facing male enemies like Herc. Halloween Arrangement can be great for switch-ins when you're using the battle suit, allowing her to tank an enemy Noble Phantasm with minimal skill usage, or Bridal Training for healing. And finally, Fox Knight's Dream or 2030 can be good choices if you're supporting a crit servant like Gil or Saber Lancelot. Overall, everyone should have a max level Mosh, and you should work on her skills too. Free to play or not, there's really no better pure defensive support in the game than Mosh. Her utility is through the roof as she can be used on practically any team with any servant and still be extremely effective at providing unbeatable defensive support and a top tier offensive buff. And alongside another heavy stall servant, your team becomes unkillable. Her cooldowns can be a little excessive on her invincibility, but because her major usage is in the defense buff that she gives from her Noble Phantasm and Wall of Snowflakes, it isn't as much of an issue. I think Mosh is a prime example of an OP, pretty much game-breakingly good servant, since she can give any team the tools that it needs to survive and deal serious damage. So she gets an S rank from me. Like I said, if you don't have her leveled, it should be your top priority to do so. Properly taking care of your Kohai is not just a meme, it'll save your life. And those are my thoughts on Mashu. I personally plan on leveling her skills to max very soon, and she's a large reason why the game is so beatable no matter what servants you use, so hopefully this video taught you how to use her well. If it did, let me know in the comments below, and please do check out the Lancer Arturia Spotlight, linked to both on screen right now and in the description below. Don't forget to leave a like if you enjoyed the video, and consider subscribing if you really enjoyed the video. Join the party over at our Discord, show us on Twitch, and follow us on Twitter. And I'll see you all in the next Servant Spotlight. Soberoni out. Later.